What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of a Matthew McConaughey rom-com? The struggles of dwarfism, perhaps? No? That's kind of weird. Hollywood sure seems to think so. Tiptoes is a 2003 rom-com starring Matthew McConaughey, Gary Oldman, Peter Dinklage, and Kate Beckinsale about Matthew McConaughey's character Steven struggling with the fact that he is a raging hate boner for his family that is made entirely of little people. Despite the fact that this movie has every opportunity to be an incredibly effective story about the harms of prejudice and the sweet taste of kissing your husband's brother, it chooses the awkward route of trying to make the story into a rom-com without any jokes, but still kind of showing the ability to kiss your husband's brother. Ew. So I'm sure you're itching to see this masterclass of a film as I once was, so I'm not going to blue ball you any longer. Let's jump right into it. This is Tiptoes.
Carol and Steven's life together was perfect.
I've got to get going.
Right this second. Hey, baby.
Hey, sweetie.
Tiptoes starts with the beautiful Rolf, played by Gary Oldman, riding his sweet box bike down the open road. Just for a couple seconds though, because now we're introduced to Kate Beckinsale's character Carol, painting the coolest circle wall you've ever seen. Oh boy, and here enters horny Steven, our protagonist? I don't think you can call him that. Enter the first conflict. Steven has to attend a family gathering, but to the audience's surprise, Steven is keeping his family of little people a secret. And Carol, his girlfriend, thinks he's cheating on him. He denies his girlfriend the pleasure of pleasuring Matthew McConaughey, and boom, he's on the road. Meanwhile, Rolf, Steven's brother, and Maurice, Peter Dinklage's character, are using their hogs for a wild hog piss break. As they finish up pissing, Lucy, Maurice's future love interest, hops off a bus. Maurice rides his bike over to her with his unwashed piss hands, and sparks have never flown faster. Back to Steven's universe, Steven arrives at the family gathering, which turns out to be a little person convention, and to my surprise, everyone there is also horny.
Say hello to the indomitable Miss Kitty Cat.
So hello, Mr. President.
Pleasure's mine.
See your tits?
Steven chit-chats and does a little boogie. Rolf and Maurice pull into the parking lot late, missing the event. Maurice and his newfound Juliet run into the event right as it's about to end to casually steal some snackies while Steven and Rolf catch up. Steven tells his brother to call his parents and not tell them he drove 400 miles in a death trap. Rolf tries to go out to dinner with Steven, but can't because he has a class early in the morning. Pussy. And just like that, they part ways. Returning from the party, Steven and his absurdly pronounced cock sneak into bed with Carol. She asks if he had a good time at his mystery horny convention, and he mutters, it was okay. Carol then asks why he's keeping his family a secret. Steven wonders why she's obsessing over it now, even though they've been together for over a year. After trying to brush it off and essentially gaslighting her a couple times with some beautiful gems like, would you just let it go? And you do not think I'm seeing someone. Carol finally brings up the scariest topic that Steven could imagine. The future. And let me tell you, Steven does not fancy the future.
How we're always talking about our future and what we're gonna do and where we're gonna live and all that other stuff.
Can we talk about this later?
No, we need to talk, Steven.
It turns out Carol's on a mission to talk with Boner Boy tonight of all nights because she thinks she's pregnant. There it is, the second and main conflict of the movie. No, it's not the last. Or honestly, the most interesting. Steven wonders how this could happen because they use protection. But Carol replies, yeah, except for like 3 times a week when you bang me in the middle of the night, which is awesome because I can only imagine him turning into like a goblin in the middle of the night. That's like, you still owe me 2 dickings by the end of the week, or I'll have your soul. Anyways, he goes into the casual panic you'd expect from a guy finding out he now has to be responsible for a human life, mixed with an odd amount of Steven guilt-tripping Carol like it was her balls that splattered her baby maker. The scene ends without any resolution, and the focus flips back to Rolf and company. Rolf, Maurice, and Lucy pull into a motel in the great land of Hollywood. Maurice tells Lucy that it's a shithole, but she feels glamorous just being there. They walk inside to buy a room, and the guy at the front desk looks at Lucy and tells them no prostitutes allowed, which is a crazy first thing to tell to somebody. It's like if I went to buy ibuprofen at my local Walmart, and the cashier was like, whoa, we don't sell the junkies around these parts, man. Like, goddamn, at least lie about like your cashier being broken or something weird first. Lord almighty. Anyways, he tells them that there's only one room, so they have to share. Accompanied by just straight up making fun of them for being little people? Not cool, but he gives them the room and off they go. Rolf tells Maurice not to bang his soulmate while Rolf is in the room, but Maurice tells him to put on headphones and face the wall because he's feeling good tonight, which is also insane. The lovebirds drink some alcohol made from morphine syrup and cognac, and boom, they get it on. Actually, Lucy tries to like pop his back, but it sounds like she breaks every single vertebrae in his back.
God, Lucy, no.
And then they get down. After the hanky-panky, Maurice falls off the bed and runs to the bathroom to puke. Lucy asks what's wrong, and Rolf explains that he's got loads of health problems, but he's too stubborn to deal with it. Rolf tries to call a doctor, but Maurice hits him with a pillow because no doctors.
No doctors.
Is it racist to make fun of French people? I think it's fine. Shortly after, Rolf heads to his little lady Sally's house to say hi. Turns out Sally does a little sleeping around, as the kids say, because Rolf's asking about guys in her bed and all sorts of stuff. Thankfully, Sally's a good person and has a very valid response.
I let him fuck me twice, okay?
Rolf says she's got to get her life together, but she replies that it wouldn't be like that if they were together again, so she is single. Nope. Enter Adrisi. Rolf wants to talk to the man, but Sally makes him hide in her room. Turns out Adrisi's a bit of a bum. He quits his job and Sally asks how he's gonna get his own place if he can't keep a job longer than a day. He fucking brushes it off. He's like, enough with this shit. He asks Sally for bus money, but she says that she has to pay her phone bill. Not to worry. Adrisi has the perfect compromise.
All right, I will pay you back and your G-spot.
Sally, of course, sneaks back into her room where Rolf's hiding and makes him give her the money. But oh no, big bad Adrisi comes in and finds Rolf in Sally's bedroom. Huge warning here for domestic violence and violence of little people, because the next scene is fucking absurd for no reason. So I'm gonna try to get through it quickly. Basically, the whole scene is just Adrisi beating the shit out of Rolf and pushing Sally down while the most cartoon-ass music plays in the background.
My way down! Stop it! Get off of him! Stop it!
This is like a huge example of a movie clearly not being written as a rom-com, but the studio taking it going, feelings are boring, and mismatching it up into a fucked up looking weird mutated rom-com baby that isn't even a rom-com because it's not funny. The movie's not even written to be funny, but it's like edited to where it's supposed to be cheeky, but it just doesn't work. It's freaky. Not cool. This scene being portrayed as silly, especially within the context of the film, is just gross. After Sally hits Adrisi over the back with what looks like a boombox, Rolf leaves and tells Sally that she should call the cops. I don't think she calls the cops, but it's never explained. The perspective is back to Steven and Carol now, as Carol awaits her pregnancy results. Steven is at his job as a firefighter trainer. He's basically being like a drill sergeant to a firefighter trainee while the trainee is doing some sort of like physical test, and one of his coworkers
You can feel the cooling and soothing already.
One of his coworkers comes up and tells him he's being an asshole. He's like, hey, you knock it off. You're being a wiener. Honestly, though, I just thought he was doing it to, like, simulate the pressure of a high-stakes situation. And so did Cameron when we were watching it together. So it just kind of came off as, like, the fuck are you talking about? It was really confusing. Like, I could tell what they were trying to do. They were trying to show that he's in a bad mood or he's stressed out. But it really just came across as him doing his job. And then the other lady like, hey, you need to be nicer. It was awful. That's 2 finger points within 1 minute. You're being naughty. And then once again, the perspective switches back to Rolf. But this time, it's Carol's perspective too. Rolf shows up at Steven and Carol's house while Rolf is at work. Rolf asks where Steven is, and Carol says he left already, but he'll be back in a week, which was never mentioned, but okay. Rolf introduces himself to Carol as Steven's brother and asks if he can come in. As Rolf comes in, he explains how he was attacked, and Carol is reasonably taken aback. So of course, she looks him up and down and asks, are you guys blood brothers? Rolf replies that they're actually twins, and Carol tells him that they've been living together since last May and getting married in the summer. Steven, as the good brother he is, didn't mention anything about her to Rolf. So Carol replies with, maybe you want it to be a surprise. Now I know some families aren't super close, but this is a little bit extreme for a surprise, don't you think? In my opinion, Carol doesn't seem to care too much that Steven's family doesn't know about her, because then she doubles down and asks Rolf, are your parents, And Rolf replies that, yes, you dumbass, they're little people too.
Couldn't you tell by looking at Steven?
No, just kidding. He was really nice about it. I just wish he said that. Rolf reveals that Steven's the only big guy in the family and asks to sit down and rest because he was, assaulted. Carol says goodbye to Rolf and dips out of there for a couple minutes. Movie runtime, at least. The movie points its attention back to Maurice and Lucy, but I'm not going to keep covering them in depth because they literally have no narrative point in this movie, besides hanging out with Rolf a couple of times. But they wake up late in the hotel, and as they're being kicked out, Maurice pulls out a gun, and before he actually does anything, Lucy goes out and beats the shit out of the hotel workers. That's it. Yeah, no, that's the whole scene. You're going to see that trend a lot with their scenes. It's literally just, oh, weird thing happened, Done. No point. Runtime filler. Back to Steven as he's talking to the firefighter trainees. Bad news for Steven though, because his girlfriend dressed as a slutty Ebenezer Scrooge stomps her way up to him and drops the news. She knows about his family. And right out the gate, she drops the M-bomb. Thankfully, Steven has the mind to correct her, which when you get later in the movie is like, due to you of all people? Carol brings up the fact that their baby has a chance of being born with dwarfism, and Steven tells her that it's true. She's understandably upset for a couple seconds, which all things considered is surprisingly quick. Carol wants to know why he didn't tell her, and asks if Steven actually wants to be in a serious relationship with her. And Steven's just kind of like, whoa, man, I'm not gonna be jumping through hoops to be in a relationship with you, you high maintenance bitch. You can't be threatening me, dog. You can't be threatening me, Carol. Carol, rightfully, is like, how am I threatening you? And Steven says, this whole will the motherhood thing. But Carol just kind of explains that, no, it was not a threat. Steven says they could adopt. Carol wants to have children of their own, and Steven says he doesn't know what's possible. Carol then asks if he thought that she'd just walk away when she found out that they were, in her words, midgets. And Steven says to please stop saying midget, and she replies with, I don't really care about all that stuff, which is fucking insane to say. That's like if you're just calling black people the N-word, and then someone was like, whoa, what are you doing, dude? And then she's just like, oh, I don't really bother myself with all this political correctness. Like, to a certain extent, sure, but that's like the number one rule. Thankfully, she comes back to the conversation by asking if it would really matter if their kid was little. Good. That's like she was surprised at first. She hadn't really seen it in her life. Now she's like, you know what? Fucking doesn't matter. It's our kid. Cool. That's good. Steven, however, Steven says it's not something you just walk into. Carol says he could have told her, and the conversation ends there. Back to Maurice for some fucking reason. For about a minute or two, we get to see Maurice whispering sweet nothings while Lucy tells this insane story about how her ex was a wood jewelry whittling truck driver who turned into a meth head that slept with transsexual prostitutes on the road, and who then flipped out and thought Lucy was an alien walk-in, which, according to my research for this video, is just an alien inhabiting a human body. Anyway, now it's back to Rolf. Like, the fuck was the point of that scene? Rolf is arguing with Sally about whatever the hell when Carol walks in.
I'm a fucking fart!
Carol looks at him like someone who just yelled, I'm a fucking fart, and he says that was the girl who tried to have him killed this morning, which, to my memory, is not what happened at all. Although she definitely instigated it by telling her nutjob, low commitment, booty call, couch surfing, fuck toy boyfriend that she's gonna fuck Rolf. Anyways, Carol apologizes for being so weird about his family having dwarfism and continues to explain that she's pregnant and she was concerned for her baby. She says that since Steven's a regular sized guy, the baby shouldn't be affected, and Rolf's like, I don't know if that's how it works. But that he is no doctor. He tells her that he can get her in contact with a specialist, and she does a silly little nose crunch. Rolf then takes her to meet his family, not Steven's parents, but like some cousins and his uncle, and explains that they won't be happy about him missing the convention. Carol still doesn't know about the convention, so when he explains it to her, she whispers asshole, which was either directed at her boyfriend, or she broke the fourth wall just to say my name with a lisp.
So, my name's Axel, obviously, and the reason I even made this joke is because when I was a little kid, I used to have a neighbor that had a lisp, and he, apparently, I found out one day, would always call me asshole, and I just thought he was saying my name, because reasonably, I did not assume he was saying, like, asshole, when he was like, asshole, because it just sounded like Axel, because he had a lisp, so fun fact. Also, he was like 7, so that was the main reason I didn't assume he was saying that. Like, who was teaching this kid that potty mouth? No, sorry. He was really using his speech impediment for the forces of evil on that one.
The uncle actually gives a good speech about how life is about hardships, and if a person can't deal with that, then they'll never be happy, which is easily the best part of the movie so far, even though it's so brief. I have a feeling that the movie was a lot more like that before I got mangled like a child that crawled inside of Freddy Fazbear. Real quick, I also wanted to mention that all the stuff with Maurice feels like it was maybe originally a side story that dealt with like this theme or something similar, but instead it just kind of gives us tiny glimpses of random shit, like literally consistently, just random shit. It's just filler of weird shit, which like they're probably the most entertaining parts of the movie, but they have nothing to do with the narrative, like nothing. They have no like play in the story, so it doesn't matter. And like if they were comic relief like next to the characters, I would have less of a problem, like in the scenes where they are that, but there's so many scenes of them just chilling out in the fucking grass, not relating to anybody else. At least in the other scenes, they're interacting with the characters. Like it's a little bit of a different thing there than they were trying to do. Clearly it came off across more as lazy dumb than smart dumb, and they fucked up. Rolf's uncle said that he can contact her with any medical help or like books that she may need, and Carol starts to cry, saying that they're all so wonderful, and here she is wondering if she should bring a person into the world that's just like them, and that it must be awful to hear that from her, which again is actually a really interesting thought. You can be worried about the medical side of things and any sort of like social prejudice, but at the end of the day, her baby's just gonna be another person, and their life is just gonna be what they make of it. Kitty, the blonde girl in the beginning of the movie that was hitting on the uncle, tells Carol that she doesn't have to be sorry because she's only worried about her baby. Carol says that she just wants her baby to have a happy and productive life, and the uncle says there's nothing to worry about because there's nothing about being little that means you can't be productive or happy, which fucking real, dude. You fucking come with that shit on your own? That's fucking sick, dude. Are you kidding me? The scene switches to a phone call between Carol and Steven, which is the weirdest fucking creative choice I have ever seen, because every single shot of Carol is talking like a seductive hyper close-up, like on the mouth, just like half of her mouth, and every shot of Steven is just a shitty looking wide shot that looks like it was a fucking scrap shot from Clerks before they made it black and white and then didn't have any lighting, but it's just a shitty wide shot of him sitting on a log or whatever
the fuck that is.
I know it's not a bench, that's for sure. I genuinely have no idea what it is. The weirdest thing is like the conversation's not even sexual, like at all. It's about the baby, and Steven's cadence is like he's talking to a coworker at the water fountain, while Carol sounds like she wants Steven to put a baby in her instead of discussing how to get a baby out of her. She tells him that the family invited them to a party, and Steven is like, yep, no, yeah, that's fine. By the way, my battery's actually like super dead, so I'll see you tomorrow, bye. And it hangs up before she even finishes what she was saying. Steven chucks the phone like a stone and lets out a moan or a groan. It's truly unknown, but his phone still be gone. Anyway, some random girl walks up and he's like, hey, you want to go to a party tomorrow night? Carol, Rolf, Lucy, and Maurice all pull up to the party in a Dodge Dakota, which I don't know how they all met up, but who cares? Rolf tells Carol she's looking beautiful, and into the funky zone they go. Sally instantly tries to hit on some guy that's saying he's too old for her, but in like a horny way, which just like, don't. Stop. After that, Carol finds Steven, and for some reason, he brought us dolled up students. Stop. That literally has no effect on the story. I don't know why that was even in there. It's never mentioned again. But Carol and Steven go off to get a drink. On the way, they run into Rolf and Sally, who is with him now, even though one shot ago she was flirting with a dude. And they tag along. When they get inside the house, they find Maurice yelling at Rolf's uncle about some crazy communist propaganda. And I'm not just saying that, he's literally a communist, a self-proclaimed one at that.
I am a Marxist. Who are you?
Well, I don't want to hear about it.
Honestly, it was just a little hard to understand what he was yelling about. He was pretty vague. Also, he was shit-ass plastered. Rolf doesn't take too kindly to that sort of treatment of his uncle, and he throws Maurice in the hallway to scold him. Rolf then goes outside with Steven and asks what's up with the whole hiding his entire family thing. Steven says it's not his business, and Rolf yells at him saying that he knocked up a young girl and wouldn't even tell her that his baby's gonna be little. True, not chill. Steven again pulls that how is that any of your business line that worked so well last time. Rolf says that he's his brother and is really hurt that Steven is so ashamed of his family. Steven says that Rolf is full of shit because the only reason he didn't tell her is because he doesn't need to bare his soul to people or whatever stupid shit that he implies. Rolf calls his bluff and Carol wakes up. Rolf says he just introduced her to some people and gave her some connections and walks away. Carol says that she just wanted some information and Rolf didn't do anything. Rolf yells at him not to defend him. She says,
I can if I want.
And Rolf says he's gonna take Sally home. Carol and Steven calm down and then Rolf walks into the house to find Sally, but to his surprise, he can't find her anywhere. So we asked a dude who just kind of casually knows where she is. He's like, yeah, I saw her fucking going that way over, and he was right. Anyways, he goes over there, and Sally is fucking the dude from earlier on the table in this room with completely glass walls so that everybody can see what's happening. And not one dude warned him. Carol and Steven find out and go check on Rolf, who's honestly just chilling in the parking lot. Steven talks about it to him and gets him to ride home with him. Back at horny Steven's house, he lies awake thinking about sad stuff. Carol wakes up and asks him what's wrong. Steven says that there's still time to adopt, and Carol says that she's not against abortion, but she wants the baby. Steven says having a fucked up kid is no bed of roses, and Carol's like, whoa, the fuck you call my kid fucked up for, you fucking douchebag? What the I'll fuck you up, you big weirdo. Steven brushes it off, so Carol asks what Rolf's childhood was like. She asks if he was bullied, and Steven says not really, but that he was in pain all the time. He explained that his muscular system is too big for his skeletal system. So Carol is like, they make drugs for that though, right? And Steven says, yeah. Called morphine, which is not ideal. Then Carol asks about his teens, and he then goes to explain that Rolf got hella pussy. He was f***ing Sally like a madman and lost his virginity before Steven did. He also said that Sally yelled at him in the middle of the whole school and said, Rolf Bedelia, you haven't f***ed me in 5 months, which is hype as f***. because the whole school's like, whoa, dude, Rolf gets pussy. What a fucking wild man. Anyways, serious warning for like random sexual graphic. It's about like Steven as a kid. It's not abuse, but it's weird. So just if you don't want to hear anything weird, skip a couple seconds. Then Carol asks a bit of a weird question and gets a much weirder answer, and then proceeds to have an even stranger response. She asks him if he's ever made sexy love to a little person, and he says, no, just kid stuff, which if you stop there, is not good. And then he goes on to say that he'd sit in a circle and play doctor, but that doesn't count. And she says, and I'm quoting here, you had a circle jerk with a bunch of little people? I'd love to see that. And then they make out. I don't like anything that implies. So we're not discussing what just happened here. Wipe it from your memory. You have this experience internally. You don't need to think about it. Steven then asks if she's sure she wants to have this baby, and that's not just a weird political statement. She says, oh God, what a peculiar thing to say.
Which one could argue that her saying what a peculiar thing to say is in fact a peculiar thing to say in and of itself.
And he replies with, I'm a peculiar guy. Carol then says that he seems to have some sort of pent-up feelings about his family being little, and that he should go to therapy because it's not good for the child with dwarfism to grow up with a dad that's uncomfortable with little people. Agreed. To be fair, yeah. Steven gets offended and looks around like a lot. Then they go to sleep. Cut to Carol hanging out with Steven's mom, which I'm now realizing we're 2/3 through this movie, and this is the first time we've seen them. But Steven's mom just kind of roasts her about her job, and then Carol's parents arrive at the door.
Did you go to school? Yeah, to the New York School of Art and Design.
I'm impressed. You mean you make money at that?
Yeah, it pays the bills.
Hey.
Now, Carol didn't tell her parents that Steven's family was all little people, and her dad makes a funny face at first, but Carol's mom straight up looks like her plate of tortellini is turning into 1,000 little cockroaches the entire time. As they eat their meal, Steven goes off to help his dad by grabbing barbecue sauce, and Carol's mom tells Carol that she could have prepared them. They're not whispering, by the way. Carol tells her she didn't think it mattered, and her mom casually calls her a nonconformist. Meanwhile, Steven's dad is right next to them the entire time on the barbecue. Steven's dad seems to not have noticed, or just doesn't care, because he then makes a toast to Steven and Carol. The scene then cuts to later in the dinner, where Carol's dad is doing some sort of poem about farts while they're all eating dinner. And surprisingly, they all love it. Sylvia, Carol's mom, is picking at her food like an angsty teen when Steven's mom asks what's the matter. And Sylvia says that there's something she needs to bring up that they won't want to hear. And Carol's instantly like, what the fuck are you on, dude? Don't do that. And Sylvia's like, I'm sorry, but this has to be brought out in the open. Which definitely doesn't seem like anything rude's about to come out of her mouth. Followed by a good ol', I certainly wouldn't want anyone to think that we're prejudiced people. But, okay, Kirk, you tell him. You're certainly more confrontational than I am. Kirk is Carol's dad, by the way, and it turns out that they just want them to have a Jewish wedding. Yeah. No, that was it. Apparently, their grandpa was pissed at their parents for going reform, and he won't come unless the wedding is Jewish. So Steven and Carol just start laughing because obviously that's not what they thought he was about to come out of his mouth. So yeah, they didn't give half a shit if it was a Jewish wedding, so all that awkward tension was pointless. But I will admit, it was kind of funny. I like that part.
That was honestly probably the best part of the movie so far. Or at all.
Anyways, cut to the wedding. It's short-lived, not much happens. Maurice and Lucy were at the ceremony, but just sitting on a blanket, like away from everybody else, while Lucy calls the wedding dress a waste because of Carol's pregnant belly, which is like super fucked up. Maurice basically says, I'd hit. Carol straight up kisses Rolf on the lips after he tells her that Steven is a lucky guy. What a good move, dude. And that was all that happened. It just felt, the kiss was really awkward. Steven was also watching, so I don't really know what any of that was about. But Rolf says that he's going up to his cabin to get some writing done, and it was only now introduced that he was a writer. So cool. Cut to the baby being born. The doctor comes in and tells them that they're gonna have the baby stay there for a couple of days and go on a long-term regimen that they'll keep him on through puberty. Steven starts to go a little cuckoo, but Carol gets him relaxed. The doctor continues to talk about bi-weekly hormone injections and monthly blood samples. Steven is holding on for now, but the dude is sweating like a pig, and seemingly reasonably so. That's terrible to hear that your child has to go through that. Like, I get that.
Steven. God damn it! How could you two be so calm, huh?
Okay. The doctor says that Steven should take some counseling, and Carol's like, that's what I was saying. And then shit-ass Steven says what he needs is new chromosomes. Fuck you, Steven. No need to be a little prejudiced bitch. He comes back in after a while of resting and asks if he can take over for a little bit. Carol's like, are you for real right now? And Steven tells her that he is for real. So she lets him, but, you know, I don't think I'd let this dude touch this baby. I'd be afraid that he'd throw it, too, at the wall. Don't worry, the baby's fine, though. But Carol just keeps staring at him with pure terror, and oh my god, I feel bad for this girl. A little while later, we see Carol holding the baby as it cries, and Steven, by this point, is completely disinterested. Steven says that he's crying because he hurts, and then he just goes bananas yelling at Carol, telling her to call the baby a dwarf because she hasn't said it yet. Which, like, who cares, you weirdo? You, like, yeah, okay. And then he yells, I'm a dwarf! And the scene ends. Which, no, you're not. Later in the day, sadly, and not sadly, Steven decides that they would be better off without him, which honestly, yeah, they almost certainly would. At least with the way that he's acting. He doesn't do shit except complain about the fact that the kid's a little person. So Steven kicks Carol and the kid out of the house. Like, what? Okay. You're gonna make a now single mother and her child with very demanding health problems go off and try to find a place to stay, all because it's hard for you? What a wiener. Wiener score 10 out of 10, as in he's the biggest wiener. Carol ends up going to Rolf's cabin where Maurice and Lucy are also staying, and Maurice is sick of Lucy thinking he farts.
You fart.
No, not felt. No.
Carol explains to Rolf that they're separated and she begins living with him. Over the last 15 minutes of the longest hour-and-a-half long movie I've ever seen, Carol and Rolf just kind of hang out. Rolf helps with the baby and Maurice and Lucy are fighting the whole time. Then she leaves. Are they in this movie again? Oh, no, they literally have no point. Steven does actually visit one time, but that pretty much just consists of Steven saying that he's working on it, but doesn't quite get that having a kid means that he has to be caring for the kid and do things for the kid. He's like, yeah, no, I'll be better because you want me to be. And then she's like, no, you should be better for the kid. And he's like, weird. Yeah, he's a prick. And also Steven just kind of vibes Rolf out.
Which, to be fair, his girlfriend is staying with his brother, to which she kissed, you know.
Steven leaves, then later that night, Rolf and Carol go outside to watch the stars, and Carol just says, hey, Rolf, you can kiss me if you want. And then they kiss. And boom. The end. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie try to be so pretentious, but end up feeling like a shitty first draft that just kind of made it through an entire film process somehow. Apparently the movie was fine before the studio grabbed it by the balls and just kind of flung it around, according to Peter Dinklage at least. But the entire movie just kind of feels like a parody of its own concept without actually being funny. The funniest part of the movie is literally just in the beginning where the uncle makes a joke to his kid and it's really just a simple joke. The kid was like, would you have me again, Daddy? And he was like, I'd have to think about that one. That was the funniest part of the movie. It's not a rom-com. It very clearly is just a drama. I mean, a poorly made one, but nothing in it is at all romantic until the end where she kisses her husband's brother. Nothing feels resolved. It just kind of ends and you sit there with saltine crumbs on your chest wondering why the fuck you spent a total of 3 hours watching this movie. One while I was watching it, one while I was writing it, and it's going to be another time well, I'm editing, so like 4.5 hours, actually. It attempts to destigmatize dwarfism, but just straight up fails. Any shred of dignity or meaning that this movie had was ruined in the editing process. Also, why the fuck was Maurice and Lucy even in the movie? I will say that 1,000,000 times. They literally just felt there to force this movie to hit 1 hour and 31 minutes, which is like the minimum for a feature film, I think, for it to be in theaters. It's just like to call it a feature film. I don't know, like.
I was wrong. It's just the standard length, I guess. That's it.
But like, if you take those scenes out, it wouldn't be that. And there's no point for those scenes to be in the movie, so that has to be why. I am curious to see what the original looked like, though. But I think this movie would do better just being left in the past. Don't bring back the whoever the cut. I don't know the directors. I don't want to ask. I can't believe that 2 years before Batman Begins, Jim Gordon was appropriating little people. That's a fun fact for the day. I guess is all you can take away from this experience, really. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see me cover more movies, I'd love to. Just make sure your suggestions are weird, and have a lovely day. Subscribe to become the real Mr. President, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.